The IRS scandal is continuing. We're still getting documents. Judicial Watch, as we have been with virtually every scandal here in Washington, D.C., we have had, I think, at least 9 Freedom of Information Act lawsuits on the IRS scandal. And pretty much all the big things you know about the IRS scandal, or you should know about the IRS scandal, was uncovered as a result of Judicial Watch's Freedom of Information Act lawsuits. And there was a civil lawsuit against the IRS and the, I guess, I don't know if Lois Lerner was a defendant or not, but Holly Paz, who was another IRS official during Lerner's time. And the Justice Department under Jeff Sessions with the IRS settled that case, which was good. That was a positive development. But one of the interesting things about that case is that both Lerner and Holly Paz were deposed, meaning they were questioned under oath. But we don't know what they said because those depositions have been sealed. So we've been asking the court, I'm looking for the press release on this, we've been asking the court for this, for these records to be unsealed because we obviously have an interest. So they opposed it. They don't want these records to be unsealed because they've been allegedly subject to threats, which of course no one agrees with, but you have to weigh that against the public's right to know about government misconduct and the hijacking of the IRS by the Obama gang to target its political opposition. And again, it was bipartisan in part in the sense that we just uncovered recently records showing that a top staffer for John McCain suggested that Lois Lerner audit virtually all these 501c4 groups or political groups in a way that would be financially ruinous for them to operate. That was a Republican staffer suggesting that. But the focus in the IRS scandal in the end, though, was on the Tea Party. And so they suppressed and oppressed these groups, and Judicial Watch uncovered so much in the way of scandals showing, and I think we highlighted in the brief. I'll just read a few of the headlines that we highlighted to the court about the work we did. And these are the headlines from some press releases, and it's only selection. Judicial Watch obtains IRS documents showing Lerner in contact with DOJ about potential prosecution of tax-exempt groups. Judicial Watch press release in 2015. New documents reveal DOJ, IRS, FBI plan to seek criminal charges of Obama opponents. That was back in 2010 that plan was taking place. New documents reveal top Obama IRS official Holly Paz, P-A-Z is her last name, admitted Cincinnati office, remember the famous Cincinnati office, targeted groups based on, quote, guilt by association. New IRS documents show Lerner did not need conservative group donor lists. Remember they were asking for donor lists of these groups? She didn't need those. Emails mentioned secret research project because they were going to return the donor lists, and there was an IRS official who said, wait, I've got a secret research project. Yes, he called it that. You can't return those names that we don't have a legal right to have. And of course, our lawsuits sparked investigations into Lerner's emails, into the backup tapes that first were not there and then were there. It led to calls for impeachment of John Koskinen, who was Obama's IRS commissioner at the end of his term and for too long a period of President Trump's term. Well, we're in the center of it. So we want to get access to figure out what Lois Lerner said and how Holly Paz said under oath. We've been fighting in court for about, I don't know, almost a year on this. And so finally the court said, yes, Judicial Watch, they didn't even want to let us file a brief, the other side did, advocating for our interests here. But the court allowed this brief to be filed. So next week there's a hearing in Ohio. We plan to attend about whether or not we are able to get access to this information, and most importantly, that you'll be able to get access to this information. And before I let this story go, I want to highlight certain issues about some of these issues that I've talked about with the IRS, because I'm glad the Justice Department settled with the IRS with these groups. That was the right thing to do. But the wrong thing to do was not to initiate a serious criminal investigation or prosecution of what went on during the Obama administration under the IRS. And I'll tell you why it didn't happen. And I'm talking about the Sessions Justice Department that last year said they weren't going to do anything. Lois Lerner Congress wanted Lois Lerner to be pursued for contempt and other things. Justice Department didn't want to do that, and of course they weren't going to do any further or fuller investigation. And this is the conflicts that take place here, because the headlines reference this. So what we found was that the Justice Department under Barack Obama, their public integrity section, reached out to Lois Lerner, and they had an idea of trying to prosecute the very groups that Lois Lerner's IRS was suppressing. And they had this new theory of the law saying, well, you know, they're doing too much politics. And when they signed on to the form saying they would do a certain amount of politics, it turns out they were lying, and we should prosecute them for lying. An outrageous abuse of the rule of law, but that's what the Obama IRS and DOJ were thinking of doing. And so Lerner met with them about how to do that, and subsequently found out they sent 1.3, I think, million pages of documents about virtually every nonprofit group in the country involved in political discussions to the Justice Department and to the FBI. And guess who ran the FBI at that time? Robert Mueller. So Robert Mueller's FBI and Barack Obama's Justice Department were working with Lois Lerner's IRS to figure out ways to put in jail the folks President Obama didn't like. And you may scratch your head and wonder, why would they abuse the rule of law so much to target Trump, the FBI, and DOJ? Well, they were willing to jail President Obama's citizen political opponents in 2010 and 12. And the only reason that thing was stopped was the exposure of the Obama IRS scandal by the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. And the only reason we found out that these documents were sent over and there was this collusion between the DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS to jail Barack Obama's political opponents and groups and individuals the Democratic machine didn't like was because of Judicial Watch. And then so Sessions, they pretend to do a relook to see whether there should be a criminal investigation. Well, the Justice Department is going to investigate itself there. Did they question themselves? Did they question the FBI about its conspiracy with Lois Lerner and the IRS? The Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, the same entity and criminal division charged with investigating Lerner, was colluding and conspiring with her? Surprise, surprise, they didn't find anything to investigate or prosecute. That to me is as significant a failure by this Justice Department as anything we're seeing. And remember that about Robert Mueller. When everyone tells you how principled and wonderful he is, his FBI received documents about groups they had no right to. And they were only turned over back to the IRS after it was exposed by Judicial Watch and later Congress asked some questions. That's Robert Mueller. So I have zero patience for people who fall to the ground, like on the Hill, Paul Ryan and some others, every time you mention Mueller's name. He's as much of a bureaucratic swamp creature as anyone else. And remember, he was Obama's FBI director.